Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. In this video, we just have a ton of data mines for the 4.3.2 build and just a bunch of information to go through in this video. Stuff including the Nix system, which at this point, I think could release before the end of the year. We also have some new ship stuff as well as a variant of a popular ship that has potentially been data mined. There's just a whole bunch to go through in this video. So the last thing before we get started, if you are enjoying the content, feel free to stick around and subscribe. I do have channel memberships open if you wanted to go the extra mile, and feel free to join the community Discord. I'll have a link for that down below. But regardless, I'm so glad to have you here. Let's get into all of the data mines regarding 4.3.2. All right, now starting this off, just a heads up, all of this information will be coming from the Discussing Whatever Discord. I will have a link for that Discord down below, but just a heads up, everything that we talk about in this video should be available in there. And if you want to check it out for yourself without me interrupting at all, feel free to do so. All right, so typically we go through official stuff here, but I'm just going to skip through a few things here and there just to give you an idea of what's in this 4.3.2 patch. The first thing here is the Palatino Heavy Armor. I think it looks nice. Most people have already seen it, but this is all these skins and variants we have in the file so far. Again, I think it looks nice, and honestly, it reminds me of the Volt armor that they talked about that could like refill your magazines while you're using it. There's no confirmation about that at all, but they did discuss it in the past, and it kind of just rang a bell in my head when I saw this thing initially. The next thing we have is the Frontier Fighters Finale. This has three phases. Phase 1, eliminate specific plus missing person courier variants. Phase 2, destroy medical items and ship ambush. And then Phase 3 is Hunt the Polaris. Nothing too crazy to go through there. It's just going to be another big event that'll probably struggle with the servers, but I am still looking forward to seeing if there is some fun to be had there. And then the last thing we have is these salvage updates. Now, if you are a salvager and this is something that intrigues you, I would recommend to just check out the official patch notes. I think it'll explain it a lot better than whatever I could say. And honestly, I'm not going to go through very much here at all. I think the big thing here is that there are now three different raw material types, that being powder, scraps, and chunks, and that is specifically for structural salvage. Now, what I will say is that once we get crafting, I think this system is actually going to be much, much better in terms of the depth and also the materials they are gathering from different ships. It's going to be very much based on the ship and what it was actually made of, rather than just finding the biggest ship you can find just to get as much as humanly possible. And I am excited for this, but again, it won't really matter a ton until we actually get crafting. So, not going to pay too much attention currently. The very last thing that is official here is just a sneak peek of the AI FPS turrets. This does not matter at all, really, because they've been talking about it for so long, and we just haven't seen it in game yet. So hopefully we'll see it soon, but here is a picture of that if you are curious. All right, now starting it off with the data mines, which I am really looking forward to talking about in this video. We're going to get into it with the new factions first. So that is the Dead Saints, led by Tisha Twitch Pacheco. We have FTL Courier, Hawkrow Agency, and Intersect Defense Solutions. For new characters, we have Captain Martel from the People's Alliance, and then Gabe Wendell, also from the People's Alliance. And if you don't already know what the People's Alliance is from, it is from the Nix system. Specifically, I think the Delamar, like Levski asteroid, but I'm not exactly sure if they control the whole system or just that specific landing zone. But regardless, they are a very large part of the Nix system, which, as you can kind of see, a lot of this is pointing in the same direction, which we'll get to some more of that stuff in just a bit here. All right, so some additional notes from the initial data mines. This is something we are going to expand on a few of these topics here, but some of them we're just going to pass through. First is the Clean Air event. Obviously, have no idea what that is. A lot of signs that Nix is currently progressing. We will definitely get to that in a second. Subtitles added for each city's respective ATC. New localization heavily implies that the inventory rework is working in engine on some level. Physical job board strings spotted, and then a possible new ship name, Alerum. We're going to discuss that one as well in just a bit here. Now, again, when it comes to some of these things, they are really just additional notes outside of the ship and the Nix stuff, which we're going to get into in just a second. Most of the other things you see on this list are just kind of just mentions. We're not going to really worry about them, and they probably aren't going to release anytime soon. So, just a heads up on some of those. All right, so moving into all of these Nix related data mines, there is a bunch of audio files here. We're not going to go through every single one of them. We're going to go through a good bit, but just a heads up, if you want to check them all out yourself, the link for that Discord will be in the description below. First thing here is Shattered Blade Asteroid Station raids. This is pretty cool, so take a listen to this.
On to the crisis at hand. We thought that station was abandoned and sent a pilot to investigate. Turns out Shattered Blade were hiding out. We got lit up by their turrets when we tried to attack, so we had to pull back. Comms have been cut off, so we haven't been able to make contact or know if they're still even alive. The station's one of the older models in the system, so the targeting system on the turrets can't track smaller ships. You'll have to jump through several hoops to get in, but there might be a way to bypass their security and defenses. You'll need to destroy the power relays positioned around the station. Take those out, and I'll advise from there. That was the last one. You should have access to the station arms. If you make your way inside, there are 3 shield generators per arm. We'll need to take them out to get access to the power core of the station. They're pretty heavily armoured, so hit them with something big. Without those relays, you should have access to each of the station arms. Head inside and destroy the generators in each. They're pretty armoured, so hit them with something big. That should expose the power core and let you take out their turrets.
All right, so that really is it for that section of audio files. This is some good stuff, of course, but really isn't too crazy to actually dive into here. It sounds like the Shattered Blade really is the frontier fighters of the Nyx system, and we will have many different mission types against them, this just simply being one of them. Whether this is like a narrative release that we get in a patch, or it's just a simple mission that we'll have always in the Nyx system, we don't necessarily know, but regardless, it's nice to hear a little bit of it. All right, so these next two audio files we're going to skip past because it's just the Shattered Blade basically threatening us a little bit and then telling us about the Vanduul, how they're going to kill us and whatnot. Nothing too crazy there outside of the fact that, again, it's confirming the Vanduul. But these next two audio files are going to do a lot more, in my opinion, so give these ones a listen.
Deacon Tobin here again. Intersect appreciates your help, but we're hoping to get the latest intel on who the Shattered Blade are selling to. Head out to their storage site and upload the decrypted data package you find. And don't be surprised if the Vanduul is still interested in them too. Well, guess the Vanduul also want to know who's stealing their tech. We're not going to find anything out with them in the area, so for now, focus on neutralizing all Vanduul threats and protecting the survivors.
All right, so I think this one is pretty straightforward. You're working for Intersect here. You're investigating what's going on with the Shattered Blade and who they are selling to, all this Vanduul tech, and then you bump into the Vanduul, which makes perfect sense. I think it sounds like a really cool mission, and maybe it involves you fighting Shattered Blade and the Vanduul, or maybe just the Vanduul. Regardless, it doesn't really state whether or not you're fighting them in first person, like you see in like Squadron 42, or if it's just in ships. So not really worth kind of questioning that just yet, but I think there is definitely potential. And just in general, this mission sounds pretty cool. So I am really looking forward to it. All right, now moving on to the next set of voice lines. This one is from Captain Martel from the People's Alliance. This is all about defending the Tranquility ship, so give this one a listen.
You from Intersec? I'm Captain Martel of the People's Alliance. I'll fill you in later. We need to clear these fighters off the Tranquility first. Intersec said someone would be coming. My name's Captain Anis Martel of the security vessel Tranquility. One of ours is being held hostage inside that station, but first we need help clearing out these fighters. Never gets easier losing a volunteer under your command. But we can carry on what Gabe believed in, making Nyx a safer place for everyone. Let's all do our part, okay? Take care. Just want to say, you really stepped up today. My people and I appreciate your tenacity and hard work. Hope to see you around Levski sometime.
All right, so there is a lot to get into this one. Clearly, you're working for Intersect again, but this time you're helping out the People's Alliance, specifically Captain Martel, the character we talked about earlier. Now, in this one, you're defending the Tranquility ship and potentially saving a hostage within some sort of station. Now, we don't know what the Tranquility is. I would assume it's probably just an Idris or a Polaris, some sort of ship that we already have in the game, just kind of themed to the People's Alliance. Of course, that's not confirmed, but just simply speculation. And then it also does not mention who the enemy is in this. I would assume Shattered Blade since they are kind of the main enemies of the system, but it could be the Vanduul or another organization. Now, I think the one big thing here is that there's the potential that you fail the mission where the hostage dies and it plays the third voice line, the one you just heard, or maybe you succeed and it plays the fourth one where everyone seems a lot happier and they're more excited to see you around. Regardless, I think this is some really cool stuff. This is probably a narrative mission, though, I would assume, just simply because everything feels very specific here. But I'm really excited for this mission type. It sounds like a lot of fun. All right, and then for these next three audio files, they are all basically the same thing, just saying it in different ways. Simply, probably for the purpose of just not repeating the same lines over and over. This one is really cool, and we'll get into it in just a second.
Those Vanduul really got it out for these Shattered Blade. Fight your way through, and then collect the data for decryption. Good. You made it. Go ahead and neutralize the Vanduul and Shattered Blade, then acquire the data packets and the decryption key. All right. Deal with those Vanduul and Shattered Blade, then find the data packets and decryption key.
All right, so once again, same stuff, just three times over. I think the big thing here is that you're in the middle of a conflict between the Vanduul and the Shattered Blade, which sounds awesome. It sounds like they're going to be going at it, and it's your job to make sure you eliminate all of them, but they'll also, maybe be killing each other. It sounds like just a really cool situation to be a part of, but it looks like your overall goal is to get to some sort of data and get it out of there. I'm looking forward to this, but not too much information outside of what we just heard. And for these next audio files, these are just shattered blade threads, similar to the ones we skipped over earlier, but I think these ones actually have a little bit more behind them, so we are going to give them a listen.
You like that? Hell if I know what it means. But what I do know is that you blast that out on comms, some Vanduul are sure to come running. Have fun. People's Alliance could have just walked away. You could have too. But now, they die. This should have been so much simpler. Damn, you're pretty good at killing Duel. Really saved our ass. To show our love, why don't you come land, and the people you saved can give you a proper thanks? How about this? We blast the shit out of that Idris, and you can leave. That sound good? You won't have any reason to stay then.
All right, so outside of those being moderately cringe in terms of enemy voice lines, I do think the third and fourth one are a little bit more interesting, mainly because in the third one, it sounds like they're obviously in a conflict with the Vanduul, and you take out the Vanduul, similar to the mission we just talked about, so maybe those two are connected. And then the fourth one, it's mentioning killing that Idris. I think that sounds similar to the mission from earlier about the Tranquility and defending that ship. Of course, there's no confirmation for any of these, but I do think they could be connected in some way. Now, the last couple of voice lines we have specifically from the Nix side of things is for Levski ATC, specifically the cargo deck operations. Now, I know there was some sort of ATC for uh, Delamar back in the day. I never got to play that stuff, so I don't actually know if this is the same ATC operator. If you do know for sure, let me know down below, but we'll give these a listen real quick.
Hey, the system's bugged out. Stop the transfer. Make sure you're aligned right and the loading area is clear. I'll look to see if it's something on my end. Oh, hey, you'd like to move some cargo. Okay, give me a second. Just need to find the right button. Aslan here. Just woke up to see the transfer is complete. That's pretty cool.
All right, so very clearly, this is the ATC operator for Levski, specifically the cargo deck. And I think the first one's actually pretty interesting how it's kind of giving you a voice line for an error of what could be, one of those in space freight elevators or maybe the actual freight elevator in your hangar. Regardless of whether that is the case or not, it's actually kind of cool to have a voice line if something fails. So maybe it's an easier way of telling the player, hey, the freight elevator is messed up right now. Go check it out, see if you can fix it or whatever. But regardless, I think we all just want freight elevators to work, but it's still cool to hear a new ATC operator and specifically for Levski. All right, and that really is it in terms of Nick's audio files. I mean, I don't think anything could say it enough that Nyx is absolutely releasing to the game a lot sooner than any of us realize. At this point, I genuinely am thinking before the end of the year. There's absolutely no way we don't see it at CitizenCon Direct this weekend, so I'd say be prepared for that. We're going to talk about a lot of that stuff in the next video. But I'm just going to say it that Nyx is coming very soon, and it looks like there's going to be some pretty cool content in here. So I am absolutely looking forward to this. All right, and then again, feel free to let me know down below how you feel about all these Nyx audio files. Personally, I'm super excited. The last thing when it comes to these audio files is actually a Yormandi boss fight soundtracks. So these sound really good. We're not going to listen to them because it doesn't really give us any clues or hints. It's just kind of good battle music. But it does confirm that the Yormandi, the Valakar variants that we've been talking about, will be releasing soon, and it will in fact be a boss fight. Just I think many of us were expecting that, and this will be in the Onyx facility. So Probably not 4.3.2 because I think at this point they would have discussed it, but 4.4 sounds like it will have a really cool finale for the Onyx facilities, and I'm absolutely looking forward to this one. Next thing here is a data mine for the RSI Herms. This seems to be some sort of Apollo variant. Now, again, there's not much to go off of here, just a couple of data mine files. And then there's kind of a what would be a mock-up of some of the changes in kind of the whole of an Apollo. Nothing too much to see here. And honestly, I don't think a ton of people would be surprised. In the latest monthly report, they did say they were making a variant of a popular recent release. And the Apollo obviously released very recently. So I would not be surprised at all if this was the case. All right, and then for this next data mine, this is for a ship called the Alerum. Now, this is associated with a mission, specifically the Recovering Data Intersect mission inside of Nyx, probably one of the ones we actually discussed a little bit earlier. Now, it seems to spawn by itself during a mission objective called Polaris Assault Wave, and it belongs to the Vanduul faction. Now, that doesn't give us a ton of information, but people are speculating that the ship on screen is what actually is the Alerum. That is probably not the official name for this ship, but again, these are just data mine files. What I will say is I think this will be a ship or a mission specific ship and not something we can purchase as players. Not necessarily that it isn't a really cool ship, it actually looks super cool. And if this is the actual model we do get, I'm super hyped for that. But I don't think that they're going to sell us a Vanduul ship specifically since they've been very kind of they've been careful about what they do with the Vanduul stuff, especially since we don't have Squadron 42 quite yet. Again, this is all data mine stuff, so it's very much subject to change. But I think it is cool if we do get this ship, it would probably be a lot of fun to fight. All right, then some of the last data mines we have for this very long video is some new Wikelo traits. So we have an F55 look better, probably just a different F55. Test armor, that being some of the armor we showed off earlier. I think it's the one that looks a little bit more prototypey. We have a Yormandi gun, which is a gun themed based off the Yormandi, and then want better eyes. I totally didn't realize this, but this is actually for binoculars. I actually saw a picture of this online earlier. I totally didn't believe it, but it was a picture of binoculars in Wikelo's Emporium. And it seems like we are actually getting some form of binoculars. Now, I know some people are going to have some thoughts about it being locked behind Wikelo. Doesn't seem too hard to obtain, but I do think it's actually really cool that we might be seeing binoculars in the near future. So I'm pretty pumped for that. All right, and that really is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I mean, that is a ton of data mines and information, and I would love to hear your thoughts down below on any of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. Just let me know down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. I will say we have one more video before the big CitizenCon event. We'll probably just be discussing some of the big things that we're speculating about and just getting excited for the event. And we'll probably go over some of the roadmap updates if there are any. Outside of that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.